used to not believe in coming back. I thought once your mind breaks, it stays broken. But what if we've been fighting the wrong enemy all along? There was a time in my life when the word anxiety felt like a death sentence. The moment I heard that I was struggling with anxiety disorder and depression, I made it my mission to fight it. I wanted it gone, out, destroyed. I saw my anxiety like a shadowy intruder, unwelcome, terrifying, and something that had to be eliminated at all costs. Every day I woke up ready to battle it. Every night I fell asleep exhausted from losing. But no matter how hard I tried to get rid of it, it only seemed to grow stronger, louder, more stubborn. I didn't understand it back then. Why would trying to not be anxious make me more anxious? It felt like I was trapped in a cruel paradox. Let me ask you something. If I tell you, don't think of a red shirt, what comes to your mind right now? That's right, a red shirt. The very thing I told you not to think of. You see, that's the trap. Our brains don't follow commands like don't. They need redirection, not resistance, but back then I didn't know this. I thought suppressing anxiety would make it disappear. It didn't. All it did was turn my mind into a battlefield, me on one side and my own emotions on the other. And the more I fought, the more I lost. That's when I realized something deeply uncomfortable. Maybe the problem wasn't the anxiety, maybe it was my relationship with it, and that's when everything began to change. I remember the day I decided to fight back. It was a cold morning, gray, silent, and strangely heavy. I was staring at the ceiling, unable to move. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My mind was loud, chaotic, spiraling with thoughts that never stopped. You're broken. You'll never get better. Everyone else is living, and you're just surviving. I didn't know it then, but I was already in the grip of anxiety and depression. And in my desperation, I made a choice that seemed logical at the A. I was going to fight it. I was going to get rid of anxiety once and for all. That morning, I got up with one mission: kill the fear. Destroy it. Push it away so hard that it could never come back. I thought, maybe if I just think positively enough, maybe if I pretend hard enough, maybe I can bury it. So I did what many of us do. I forced smiles. I watched motivational videos, on loop. I told myself, you're okay, you're strong, you're not afraid. I journaled affirmations, read self-help quotes like they were holy scriptures, and filled my days with forced distractions, music, games, scrolling endlessly on my phone. But here's what they don't tell you. Anxiety doesn't go away just because you ignore it. Fear doesn't die from positive thinking. And you can't outrun something that lives inside you. The more I tried to fake confidence, the more fake I felt. The more I smiled, the more I cracked. I was trying to erase something that was screaming, to be heard. And it wasn't working. At one point, I remember standing in the kitchen holding a glass of water. My hands were shaking, and I didn't know why. There was no danger, no emergency, but my body felt like I was under attack. My heart pounded like a drum. My vision blurred. My breath caught in my throat. That was my first panic attack. And in that moment, I felt something worse than fear. I felt shame. Why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal? What's wrong with me? And so the war inside me escalated. Anxiety wasn't just the enemy. It became a symbol of weakness, something ugly, something I needed to erase from my identity. I told no one. I kept pretending, I kept fighting. And every time anxiety returned, I felt like I had failed all over again. The harder I pushed it away, the tighter it held on. It was like trying to push down a beach ball underwater. It keeps popping back up, more violently every time. That was me, drowning in my own effort to stay above it. There was one night, I remember this vividly, when I sat in the dark on the edge of my bed, fists clenched, whispering to myself, I hate this. I hate this feeling. Just go away. But it didn't go away. And the more I hated it, the more it owned me. Looking back, I realize how backwards it all was. I was trying to fight an emotional fire by pouring gasoline on it. Anger, resistance, denial. I thought I needed to conquer fear, but what I really needed was to understand it. At i.e., the time though, none of that wisdom had reached me yet. All I knew was pain. All I wanted was peace. And I thought peace would come only after I destroyed my anxiety. But it never worked that way. Because here's the cruel irony. The more we try to eliminate our fear, the more powerful it becomes. The more we treat it like an intruder, the more it turns our mind into a prison. That was my first lesson. You can't kill something that's a part of you. But I didn't know that then. I was still at war with myself. And for a long time, that war cost me everything. My energy, my joy, my sleep, my sense of self. I lost months, maybe years, trapped in this loop. Trying to be strong by pretending I wasn't afraid. Trying to look okay while quietly falling apart. I thought I had to win the war. I didn't know the real healing would begin when I stopped fighting. But that is a story for the next chapter. There's a strange thing about the human mind. The more you try not to think about something, the more it becomes all you can think about. It sounds absurd, right? But it's true. Try this for a moment. Whatever you do, don't think about a red shirt. Seriously, don't imagine it. Don't picture the color. Don't see it in your mind. So, what happened? If you're like most people, the image of a red shirt popped up instantly, uninvited, clear as day. That's how the mind works. It doesn't respond to commands like don't. It needs something to move towards, not just something to run away from. And this tiny trick of the mind, this little glitch in how we think, it ruined me for years. Because once I decided that anxiety was my enemy, I lived in a constant state of don't. Don't feel this, don't think that, don't let it win. But every time I said don't be anxious, my brain heard only one word loud and clear. Anxious. It's like telling yourself, don't look down when you're standing on the edge of a cliff. What's the first thing your eyes do? They drop. That's what my life became. An endless cycle of trying not to feel, trying not to think, trying not to panic. And every time I failed, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't trying hard enough. I thought maybe I was weak, broken. No one ever told me that trying to suppress anxiety is like trying to hold your breath underwater for hours. You can do it for a while, but eventually, your body will force you to come up gasping. And when you do, it'll be even more desperate, even more panicked than before. That was me, suppressing, denying, sinking. There's a word for what I was doing, thought suppression, and psychologists have studied it in depth. One famous experiment is actually called the white bear problem. In it, people were told, don't think about a white bear. Of course, most of them couldn't help it. The bear kept popping into their thoughts. Now swap out the white bear for anxiety, or panic, or what if I never get better? And suddenly your entire day becomes a battlefield. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your brain is doing what it's built to do, responding to focus, not avoidance. This was my life. I'd wake up and immediately scan my body. Do I feel anxious today? And even if I didn't, just asking the question triggered it. Then came the spiral. One anxious thought led to another, and another, until I was back in the pit I'd been trying to escape from. It felt like my mind was a hallway full of doors, labeled fear. And every time I told myself not to open one, my hand reached for the handle. I didn't know how to stop it. So I kept trying to push harder, to double down. I thought maybe I just needed more discipline, more focus, more control. But anxiety laughs in the face of control, because fear doesn't shrink when you run from it. It grows, and every don't think about it was like pouring fuel on the Fire. I remember one night in particular. I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep and my heart suddenly started racing. I wasn't thinking of anything specific, just this creeping sense of dread. And I thought, oh no, not again. Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. Of course I panicked, because what I was really telling myself wasn't stay calm. It was be terrified that you might not stay calm. That's when I began to understand something important. You can't fight a fire with more fire. You can't fight fear with fear of fear. But that's exactly what I was doing. And most people with anxiety do the same. We become afraid of the feeling of being afraid. It becomes a loop, anxiety about anxiety. And before long, the fear isn't even about anything real. It's about itself. That's the moment when anxiety turns from an emotion into a prison. I didn't want to feel like this anymore, but I also didn't know what else to do, so I kept going in circles, telling myself to stop thinking about the red shirt, while thinking about it all day long. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I started to notice something. A quiet voice. Not loud, not urgent, just a whisper. What if you're looking at this the wrong way? What if the goal isn't to not think about anxiety, but to think differently about it? That voice didn't feel like strength, it felt like surrender, but maybe, just maybe, surrender wasn't weakness. Maybe it was a doorway. Maybe the only way out wasn't to escape the red shirt, but to stop running from it, to look at it, to name it, to sit beside it and let it be. I wasn't ready yet. Not fully. But a shift had started. A crack in the wall. A question I couldn't unhear. What if I didn't have to fight this anymore? I don't remember the exact moment I stopped fighting. There was no dramatic breakthrough, no lightning bolt of wisdom. It was quieter than that, almost invisible. Like a tired soldier laying down his weapon, not in victory or defeat, but from sheer exhaustion. I was tired of being afraid of fear. Tired of waking up every morning scanning my mind for signs of panic. Tired of losing a battle I didn't even understand. And one day, I just didn't fight it. I felt the anxiety coming on. Tight chest, fast breath, that familiar sense of dread rising up like a wave. My instinct was to run, to distract myself, to suppress it like always. But this time, something in me whispered, "What, if you just let it stay?" It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, and instead of stepping back, I sat down. I didn't fall. I didn't jump. I just stayed. I let the feeling wash over me like cold rain. I didn't resist it. I didn't try to change it. I just noticed it. Okay, I feel anxious right now, that's all I said. Not, this is wrong. Not, this has to stop. Just, this is happening. And something strange occurred. It didn't get worse. In fact, it softened. That was the beginning. I started experimenting with this new approach, doing nothing, or rather doing something radically different, allowing. When the tightness in my chest came, I stopped labeling it as danger. When the thoughts spiraled, I didn't argue with them. I watched them, not as truths, not as threats, but as clouds passing through the sky. It wasn't easy. At times it felt unbearable. My brain would scream at me, "You should be fixing this, do something." But I didn't. I sat with the discomfort, and slowly, I started to notice it had edges. It wasn't infinite. It came. It peaked. It faded. Like a wave rising and falling. One of the most surprising things I learned in those moments was this. Anxiety is not permanent, but our reaction to it can make it feel like it is. All those years I spent trying to avoid the storm, I never realized that the storm always passed on its own, if I stopped running. It's like this. Imagine a crying child tugging on your sleeve. If you ignore them, they scream louder. If you yell at them to stop, they get scared, but if you kneel down, look them in the eye and say, "I see you. I'm here," they calm down. My anxiety was that child. It didn't need to be silenced. It needed to be seen. That shift changed everything. I no longer asked, how do I get rid of this? Instead, I asked, what is this trying to tell me? Because the truth is, anxiety isn't random. It's a signal, a messenger. It shows up when something inside you needs attention. Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's buried grief. Maybe it's exhaustion pretending to be strength. But when we push anxiety away without listening, we miss the message and amplify the messenger. So I started listening. Sometimes the message was, you're trying too hard to be perfect. Other times it whispered, you haven't rested in weeks. And occasionally it was as simple as, you're scared and that's okay. Once I stopped treating anxiety like an enemy, it stopped treating me like a battlefield. I began to see it less as a threat and more as a pattern, a familiar rhythm my nervous system had learned over time. It was my body trying to protect me even if the danger was long gone. The irony? I had been at war with my own protector, but now we were starting to talk. Let me be clear. This wasn't a magical fix. It wasn't like anxiety disappeared overnight, but the relationship changed. It stopped feeling like a monster lurking in the shadows. It became more like a weather system. Uncomfortable, yes, but not catastrophic. I gave it space. I let it come and go. And I didn't punish myself for feeling it. Some days were still hard. There were setbacks, there were tears. But the difference was, now I wasn't scared of being scared. And that made all the difference. There was one particular afternoon I'll never forget. I was sitting on a park bench, watching the trees sway gently in the wind. I could feel the anxiety rising again, tingling hands, shallow breath. But instead of tensing up, I closed my eyes and said softly, you can be here if you need to. I'm not going anywhere. And something inside me softened. The fear didn't vanish, but it lost its teeth. I opened my eyes. The world looked a little clearer. Not perfect, not pain-free, but grounded. Present. Real. That day I realized something profound. Peace isn't the absence of anxiety. It's the presence of acceptance. And acceptance isn't giving up. It's giving in to the moment, to yourself, to the truth that you are human and it's okay to feel, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The more I practiced this gentle awareness, the more my body began to trust me. The panic attacks became less frequent. The noise in my mind grew quieter. And for the first time in years, I started to feel free. Not because I had conquered anxiety, but because I had stopped fearing it. And that made me wonder, what if healing isn't about changing the mind, but about learning how to return to the body? Something shifted when I stopped fearing anxiety. But even more profound was what happened next, when I began turning my attention away from anxiety and toward life. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't some grand spiritual awakening. It started with color. Yes, color. One afternoon I was sitting alone in my room. The anxiety had come again, like an unwelcome guest knocking softly at the door of my chest. But instead of slamming the door or pretending it wasn't there, I did what I had learned to do. I acknowledged it. I feel anxious right now, and that's okay. And then, without planning to, I noticed something. The cup on my desk, too, was deep blue, almost glowing in the afternoon light. I'd seen that cup 100 times before, but in that moment it felt vivid, alive, like I was truly seeing it for the first time. So I kept looking. I scanned the room slowly, like someone waking up in a world they forgot existed. The green leaves outside my window, the warm light on the wall, the distant hum of cars and birds and wind, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't focused on what was wrong. I was simply present. That became my practice, returning to my senses, not to escape anxiety, but to anchor myself in reality, not to force calm, but to find safety in what is real right now. I'd ask myself simple questions. What can I see around me? What sounds can I hear? What does the air feel like on my skin? These weren't distractions. They were connections, threads tying me back to the here and now where my body lived, even if my mind was somewhere else. I started walking more, slowly, deliberately, not for fitness, not to get anywhere, just to notice. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the way tree branches sway, the shifting sky, the scent of earth after rain. Some days my anxiety walked beside me, but I wasn't trying to outrun it anymore. I just kept walking, and that's when something beautiful began to happen. I stopped living in fear of my next panic. I started living inside each moment instead. One morning I woke up and realized I had gone an entire day without thinking about anxiety. Not because I forced it away, but because I had been busy being alive. That felt like a miracle, and it wasn't just sensory awareness that helped. It was also where I placed my attention. I began gently training my mind not to deny anxiety, but to shift its gaze when I was ready. It's like steering a boat. You don't yank the wheel violently. You nudge it a little at a time. So when anxiety whispered, "What if something goes wrong?" I'd respond not with panic, but with curiosity. What's around me right now? I'd look for color. I'd listen for sound. I'd feel the floor beneath my feet. Every time I returned to the present, even for a second, it was like building a new path in my brain, one that didn't lead to spiraling, but to stillness. Eventually, that path became easier to walk, and I began noticing things I'd long forgotten, the way sunlight dances on water, how people smile when they're really listening, the quiet magic in small, ordinary moments. It wasn't just about managing anxiety anymore. It was about rediscovering life. And I realized I had missed so much. So many years of being trapped in my head. So many conversations I half-lived. So many mornings I opened my eyes already dreading the day. Now, I was relearning how to be here. To breathe without bracing. To wake without scanning for fear. To walk through the world with my eyes not just open but seeing. Of course, the anxiety didn't disappear forever. It still shows up sometimes, but it's not the monster it used to be. It's more like a nervous passenger in the back seat. And when it speaks, I don't scream back. I listen. I nod. And then I gently remind it. We're okay now. We're safe. This to me is real healing. Not perfection, not immunity from fear, but the quiet confidence that even when fear visits, I no longer abandon myself. Because I found something stronger than fear. Presence. Noticing what's real, feeling what's here, and choosing, again and again, to turn toward life. That was the season I began to feel like myself again, not the person I was before anxiety, but someone deeper, someone softer, someone who had touched the edge of chaos and come back with gentleness. And now, I see the world not as something to brace against, but to return to. Every step forward is a return to the present. Every breath is a reminder. I'm still here, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. For the longest time, I believed something was wrong with me. I thought I was broken, mentally, emotionally, fundamentally. I looked at other people laughing freely, living effortlessly, and wondered, how do they do it? What secret do they know that I don't? But now I realize, maybe it wasn't me who was broken. Maybe it was the way I was taught to relate to my emotions. Maybe it was the belief that fear is weakness, that discomfort is dangerous, that feeling deeply is a flaw. Because when I stopped running, when I stopped trying to fix what I felt, I didn't collapse, I didn't unravel. I softened, and in that softening, I discovered something I had never been taught to trust. I was safe with myself, even in the panic, even in the uncertainty, even in the trembling moments where my breath was short and my thoughts loud. There was still a part of me that could watch it all without judgment. A quiet, steady part. A place inside that didn't need to fight or win, or run. It only needed to be present. That's the part I live from now. Not every day is perfect. I still have moments, I still get triggered. But I've built something inside that holds me. A kind of inner home, a kind of knowing. You've been here before, and you made it through, and you're not alone anymore. To anyone listening who feels like they're drowning in the same loop, please know this: you're not failing. You're not weak, you're not behind, you're just human. And sometimes being human means feeling a lot, but feeling is not the enemy. It's the way through. If you're tired of fighting, try sitting, try noticing, try allowing. Even if just for a moment. Because healing doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like finally breathing deeply after years of holding it in. Sometimes it's watching a sunset without needing to think. Sometimes it's feeling scared and showing up anyway. And maybe, like me, you'll find that your peace isn't waiting at the end of the road. It's waiting right here, where your feet already stand, because the truth is you were never broken, just buried, and now you're on your way back.